I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
Hi, I'm Diane Paulus. Welcome to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals.
Hey there, theater lovers! This is Alan Seals with the Theater Podcast, and our guest for this episode is a literal force of nature in the American theater, superstar director Diane Paulus. You know her work from some of the most massive, high-energy revivals to ever hit a Broadway stage, but today we're getting into a side of her story that I honestly didn't see coming. We talk about her father, who was actually a director himself while stationed in Tokyo after World War II, and how a single photograph of him with a script in his lap essentially unlocked her own DNA as a director. And it's such a beautiful look at how our paths are sometimes just set up for us before we even realize it. We also dig into the absolute madness that is Masquerade, teching the show across 6 different floors of a converted art supply store. Just imagine trying to coordinate 6 different versions of the same character, all rehearsing at once without the whole thing turning into total chaos. She explains how she managed to turn this massive company into an egoless, high-stakes team to bring a brand new version of an iconic classic to life. This is just an amazing conversation about leadership and vision. So make sure to follow me on social media, follow the podcast, leave ratings, leave reviews, follow Diane Paulus. Go see Masquerade once you get here to New York City. It is truly amazing. Watch the video version of this episode on Spotify or Patreon. And everybody, now please enjoy this episode with Diane Paulus.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
My guest today is a Tony Award-winning director and the Terry and Bradley Bloom Artistic Director of the American Repertory Theater at Harvard University. She has helmed some of the most iconic revivals and groundbreaking new musicals of the last 2 decades, including Hair, Pippin, The Gershwins' Porgy and Bess, Waitress, Finding Neverland, Jagged Little Pill, the reimagined 1776, and she is now bringing a brand new immersive version of the classic Phantom of the Opera to New York City called Masquerade. Diane Paulus, holy shit. I am so honored to be sitting with you today.
I am honored to be here. So excited to have a conversation today.
And I love your background. I normally start these interviews with like, tell us about how you grew up and how you got into theater, but legitimately the way your parents met, who they were, where, like, your dad met your mom in Japan when he was stationed there, but he was out there directing theater, right?
Yes.
Like, tell us that story and how that has kind of influenced you as a kid.
Sure. So my dad actually grew up wanting to be an actor, and he did theater and summer stock, eventually went into television. So when I was born, he was 52. I have an older brother and sister, so I was kind of the surprise 3rd child in the family.
Because he was 52 when you were born.
Yes.
You were youngest of 3?
I was the youngest of 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I was born, my dad had started working at CBS when there was live television. So I grew up like on the set of Captain Kangaroo, for people out there who remember that TV show. And you know, he did the live broadcasts of the Tonys and did live broadcasts of Shakespeare in the Park. So But the roots for my father were always in the theater. And so, you know, when growing up in New York City as a kid, he was dragging us to plays and Broadway and seeing shows. It was only much later in life when I decided I wanted to create a theater piece about the story of my parents that I was like opening up boxes, that like those boxes we keep in attics. I mean, I grew up in New York City, never had an attic, grew up in an apartment building, but
like, what's an attic?
The metaphorical attic,
yeah.
The box came out. And I saw a picture of my dad in the Stars and Stripes newspaper because he was stationed during the American occupation in Tokyo.
Wow.
And he was sitting with the script of Brother Rat, which was a play, with his legs crossed at a desk. And it was like, Larry Paulus tears his hair out at the premiere of Brother Rat. And I looked at it and I really had this moment of like, that's why I'm a director. Like, my father, because I mean, my father was a producer of television, but like seeing that photo of him as a director made me just go, oh my goodness, like it was in my genes somehow.
But so he went in, it was in the army?
He
right?
was in the army.
He was in the army, but in World War II.
He was in the army in World War II. There's another theater story that I'll say really quickly because He never saw active duty. In fact, he was about to be shipped off, and there was a sign at the army office wherever he was in basic training. I think like Alabama, and it said, "If you can type, you can interview to have his job in the office." And he went in, and there was like another person that he was up against. It turns out that the sergeant that was interviewing him loved William Saroyan, right? So this is like, you're going back to like the 1930s. And my father loved Saroyan and, was quoting the line like, "No foundation down the line," from one of Saroyan's famous plays. So my father was also credited, like he didn't get shipped off to Germany because he knew William Saroyan. But the war ended and he had a choice to go to the Philippines or Japan to finish out his term in the army. And kind of on a lark, he was like, "Well, everybody says Japan is so beautiful, I'll go to Tokyo." And he went, and his job was directing theater for the Army Entertainment Corps.
What?
In Tokyo. With Anne Petoniak, who was a very famous American actress who was there with him. And he did plays at the Ernie Pyle Theater in Tokyo. He even founded something called like the Far East Players, and he would tell me about how we would, put incense in the bathroom. As a young director, was like, everything matters.
Yeah.
The atmosphere, the bathrooms have to be really nice, So my father was an entrepreneur and a theater person at heart. And I think all of that, you don't realize that when you grow up around that. But that kind of like, you can do anything sort of attitude, I think had a real impact on me.
That is amazing that he went in the army to one of the farthest countries away from America that you can go to and did American theater.
And did American theater. And of course, I should say, he met my mother.
Yes.
And like, I would not be here if it wasn't for, my incredible mother who grew up, born in Tokyo, Japanese family, had a lot of activity in the import-export business. So my mother spoke perfect English, went to the Quaker Friends Seminary in Tokyo. And the joke was, and this was in the show that I did called Swimming with Watermelons, that my father went up to my mother in like, the commissary kind of place. And she was working there. And he said, she had a bandage on her finger. And he said like, ouchie, ouchie, like kind of a stupid GI. And my mother said, "Oh no, this is a really little cut. Doesn't hurt at all." Like perfect English, sort of, And that was the beginning of their romance, which was against army rules, anti-fraternization rules. They had an illicit love affair.
Oh,
and eventually, my mother left Tokyo and came to America. She had sisters here, Japanese sisters who had gone through the internment camps. She came to San Francisco, then Chicago, and then followed my father to New York. And got married here and raised, my family here in New York City.
Crazy cool. So then when you were born, you were back here in the US, right?
Yeah.
And when did you first realize that this was something you wanted to do? Because I feel like as a kid of somebody who is being dragged around, as you said, to all these other things, you either love to hate it or love it. There's kind of no in between.
No, I think my older sister's a musician. She's a professional harpist. So I grew up with a harp in our living room and a lot of music in the house. We lived in Lincoln Towers, right near Lincoln Center.
Yeah.
So we were at the opera and at the ballet, and like Damrush Park was sort of like my playground. So I was exposed to a lot of theater, and I think much to my father's delight, I played along. He would want me to read the New York Times out loud, and he would correct me on my enunciation. I mean, but I was like the happy, compliant child, like the third child in the family. I think my brother and sister hated being put in the limelight, but I sort of,
give me attention.
I was like, yes, I'll perform for you. I'll put costumes on. I'll do things. So I kind of had that, I think, as a kid. And, when I was young, like 12 years old, I joined a professional theaters company here in New York City called the First All Children's Theater that was run by this incredible woman, Meredy Stein. And I did that for 3 or 4 years. Prior to that, I was dancing as a little girl at New York City Ballet, and I got to do all the brilliant Balanchine operas, Nutcracker, Coppelia, Firebird. So I was performing as a kid and seeing a lot of theater.
Yeah.
And my mother loved the opera. So, opera was playing in our house all the time. So I think, and I studied piano. I was a musician, actually, first and foremost. I was almost on a route to be like a classical pianist because my sister was a harpist, so music was a big deal in our family. But I loved being with people. For me, I think if I had played the violin and gone into an orchestra, I might have become a musician. But but the 4 hours of practicing by myself at the piano, like I was inventing plays, as I was sitting at the piano by myself.
You were just orchestrating plays in your head?
I was, having conversations and, creating little scenarios. Like I think the solo kind of discipline has never been, a strong point of mine, but I thrive on being with people, like being in groups. That I could stay up all night working with a group like that.
Yeah.
So for me, theater became my love. And then, I went to college and I thought I was going to go into politics. And then I realized, no, I'd rather be changing the world through theater than through politics.
Wow. So your education took you through Columbia and Harvard. Which came first?
I went to Harvard undergrad.
Okay, Harvard undergrad. And
Yeah.
so that's what you went to politics for? Or
Yeah. I really thought I was like mayor of New York. I interned rather for Ruth Messenger, who was the Upper West Side Council representative back in the 80s. And I don't know, I think she sent me to City Hall and I looked at to watch all the, at that time, mostly men kind of like talking to each other on the floor of City Hall, and represented her at various meetings. And I wanted to be more in the trenches. I mean, not that politics isn't in the trenches, but like actually doing the work and, making programs, not sort of going and endorsing her work at different coalition meetings. I wanted to sort of be part of the, making change on the streets.
Yeah.
And I had studied about the Living Theater, which was a political theater group in the 1960s. Julian Beck and Judith Molina as my senior thesis at Harvard. So I got really inspired, which kind of led me to my passion for the 60s and doing hair as my first big show. But I was really fascinated. I felt like I missed my decade, like the 1960s, the kind of youth culture, and also like the flourishing of ensemble theater making and all the, the crazy outpouring of collective creations that were happening in the 1960s. So, I had studied that academically and kind of wanted to do that. Like I had these ideals of ensembles and theater companies and, changing the world through theater.
Well, your very first thing that you started, like coming out of college, right? You started your own show that was like an immersive type of thing that ran for a couple of years. It was like 6 years. It ran off Broadway. The Donkey Show.
The Donkey Show.
The Donkey
Yes.
Show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did you start that in such a different sort of medium? Because that was immersive.
Yeah, that was
one of the
immersive.
first things. And what was this? This was like
Actually, that was 1997. So that was, I went to Columbia grad school for
Yeah.
directing, got my MFA, and I started making shows like you do when you have no money and you're a young director. And the Donkey Show was an idea that Randy Weiner, who's my husband now and has been my artistic partner for, years and years and years, all the way back then, he had an idea of retelling the story of Midsummer Night's Dream, but set in the 1970s disco culture of Studio 4, by the way, which Randy and I went to when we were in high school. So it was very kind of relevant. And we had this lived experience of, being teenagers sneaking into Studio 54. And we made the show originally with two actors who were my classmates from Columbia grad school. And we did it in the lobby of a hall up at Columbia. After we had graduated, our ID still worked, so we could swipe in
right.
with like a boom box, because it was like boom box time still. And we made the show, and like the internet hadn't really started, so you would get like the disco compilation CDs at Love Drugstore, and we'd listen to them on our CD Walkman, and we'd like transcribe the lyrics, because like there was no such thing as just pressing a button and getting lyrics online. And we, Randy was originally going to write original disco lyrics. He's like, why would I ever do that? Like, disco is perfect. Let's just use these existing disco songs. And we created this crazy little show, literally, that started with two actors, Rachel Murdy and Anna Wilson. And then we started adding more and more people. And we then created this show that we premiered at the Piano Store, which was this venue down on Ludlow Street. Like this back alley used to be this old speakeasy. And it's so funny to think that back in the day, we would borrow the red ropes from the restaurant across the street, and Randy would stand on the corner and like hawk like 2 for 1 ladies' night. We would do anything to get an audience, make it like a nightclub, and like fast forward, like my husband owns the box. Like it's like this crazy like life of like we were starting like club theater back in the day, and we had this thing where if you saw the show, you became a VIP. And you could come back the next week. We did it at midnight. I mean, it was like I feel old. Like, I can't believe I did a show that started at midnight Fridays.
Yeah, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Like midnight, literally. But if you came to see the show, you got on the VIP list, and it meant you could come back the following week if you brought a paying friend. And it just became this like viral marketing before there was such a thing. And people were coming and coming and coming. And we were doing other crazy downtown shows and getting articles in the Village Voice and Time Out. And nobody was coming to see those. Like 6 people would show up for like our 10 o'clock show. And then every week we were doing the donkey show, and we'd like go outside and there'd be like 100 people standing there. We'd like, where did you come from? And they're like, oh, someone saw this in my office, and everybody said they had to come and see it. And it just took off. So we just started doing that show for like over a year downtown, and moved it to the Pyramid Club in the East Village. And then kind of a year into doing it all for free, all like just once a week, like breaking models. You know, everybody else was, everybody was holding day jobs. You just came and did the donkey show once a week.
At midnight.
And the Pyramid Club, it was like a Thursday night at 8. And then lo and behold, Jordan Roth came, and he became a fan of the show. And he's like, I think I want to move this. And then we went on this crazy journey with Jordan where I will never forget it. We went to like the Empire Diner on 10th Avenue, and we had a phone book. I kid you not, like a phone book. This really says how old we were. And we opened up the phone book to like nightclubs, and we were like looking at nightclubs, and we would get in a taxi and we would just go scout nightclubs. And we found the Flamingo, which was on 21st between 10th and 11th. And Jordan brought the show there, and we had our first commercial, like technically like our off-Broadway run of the donkey show.
That's crazy. Yeah, how that all this stuff just happens like that. And you broke the fourth wall. Like, you're one of the first to really break the fourth wall with this, just set up this format of this type of show.
Yeah.
And
I mean, to be like, because I really believe we all stand on the shoulders of people who came before us. Like the 1960s happenings, like I was looking at all that kind of 60s culture, and then like you go further back. And like we think theater is like, I go to a show in an auditorium with the seats bolted to the floor. But if you like look at theater history, theater is really much more ritual, pageant, quote unquote, immersive, right?
Well, your early career too, you were involved with the circus, right?
Well, I did a show for Cirque du Soleil. So that was, a whole learning experience, because I had always wanted to like, break the fourth wall in circus.
Yeah.
So we did that in a tent. Like it was one of the tent shows that kind of toured all over the world. Amaluna was the first Cirque show that featured more women than men. And then after that, I did Pippin. And of course, that was sort of using circus and breaking the fourth wall of, a proscenium theater with circus ideas.
When you approach directing or putting together like a traditional show in front of, I say traditional, like proscenium, where you don't break the fourth wall, is that difficult for you to kind of?
Can I just do a show where the audience sits there?
Yeah.
I think, look, I love the live theater, and for me, the theater is the theater because the audience is there and they're present.
Thank you.
It's the nature of our medium, and actually, theater only happens, just like really meditate on this, it only happens in the presence of the audience. In fact, it's happening in the space between the audience and the actor. It's the audience completing the event, and it's like in the vibrational space between the two. It literally can't exist. So yeah, we have the play, the script in our hands, and, you can, I guess, watch a video of a show, but the theater, the real hardcore theater, is a vibrational, visceral, ritual act between live performers and audience. So for me, I've been obsessed with the role that the audience plays.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode.
And I think, there's lots of theater, and I always say it's very odd to me that in our business, we say, oh yeah, I'm in the theater. I'm like, we never say like, I do sports. If you think about sports, there's like golf, which is like very quiet and like concentrated, or tennis, you don't make a noise as an audience member. And then there's like basketball, where I sit on the end behind the basketball court and I have my foam finger, and my job is to distract the player to have an impact on the show, right? So there's like a continuum of behavior for an audience at a theater show. And for me, I think coming out of the 20th century and the radicalness of like naturalism, because that was a radical departure.
Yeah.
That you're invisible and you're quiet, and it's like a peephole, and I'm quietly
Very
watching.
voyeuristic.
That was a radical departure from kind of vaudeville and making noise and screaming and making noise at a vaudeville show. But for me, theater, TV and film can do naturalism so much more powerfully.
Right.
That when I came of age, it was like, well, why do the theater? What is theater? And I think in this moment, in the 21st century, we are in the right business, I have to say, because the human-centered experience, I'm telling you, it's coming. It's going to be premium. It's going to be valuable. People are going to be flocking to just being in the presence of other humans. So I'm really happy that
I'm nodding so hard for those who are not watching.
It's like
Yes.
the theater. That's what we do. And I think I know we'll get to talk about Masquerade eventually, but I see it. I see what's going on at Masquerade, and the feeling that people are having of being 2 feet away from a performer, and having a performer look them in the eyes and sing to them and make eye contact. And I know that aspect of the theater, which that you go to a Broadway show, you see incredible talent. But what's the experience of Broadway? People want to go to the stage door.
Yeah.
They want to then see that actor. They want to get their signature.
It's an energy.
It's an energy. They want to applaud and have an effect. I mean, that's kind of why I love musicals, because musicals, there's no world in which a musical is real. We are breaking into song. We are stopping the narrative, and
Everybody knows how to move at the exact same time.
at the exact same time, and we're applauding, right? A number, even if it's Porgy and Bess, Bess You As My Woman, Audra and Norm Lewis, totally in it. But we're applauding.
Yeah.
We're saying, I see you, I feel you, I'm here, I support it, I empathize with it, I'm saying yes to this. The audience has to have a voice, and too often I think we go to the theater, and I'm guilty of it too, is you go to the theater and you can check out, and I feel like when I go to the theater and I kind of go in my brain, or I'm exhausted and I fall asleep, I'm like, oh God, we've let the patient die on the table. We're falling asleep in the emergency, the emergency room.
Yeah.
So I guess I've always been obsessed with, as a practitioner, not blaming the audience, how dare you, audience, kind of check out or fall asleep. It's no, I'm not doing my job. As a director or a producer, I have not foregrounded your attention enough. So I never believe in blaming the audience. The audience comes to the theater generous.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to 2 hours of my life in this world to give myself over to someone else's story.
And unplug, hopefully.
Unplug. So how do I meet them halfway and make them feel alive, make their heart beat, make their mind go, make their blood pump? That's the purpose of it.
I love that you said all that. And I've always said, I mean, learning so much of almost 500 episodes now of this podcast, the audience is always the final character. You can be in the rehearsal room for weeks or months, and you think something's great, and you're used to laughs at a certain place, or
Yep.
you're used to silence in a certain place, and you get an audience in there, and things are going to play in a way you've never expected.
Yes.
Always. That's just how it is.
Yes.
And that live energy is what, going off of what you said, I think what makes it so important. And as we do go forward and we are more connected digitally, the ability to unplug and have silence and feel connected to a story, to music, to a giant room full of strangers.
Yes, exactly.
I felt the need.
And to the unknown,
Yes.
right? That unknown potential of what can happen when we're together in a space.
I
Yeah.
felt the need for this so much, especially during COVID. That's what really put it in perspective for
Oh
me.
yeah, when we all tried to be filmmakers on Zoom.
Yeah, postage stamp performances, no thank you.
Yes,
But
I know.
literally just sitting in a room full of people and hearing them breathe and laugh and cry and feeling the same thing I'm feeling watching a stage full of strangers, more or less, right?
Yes.
It brings you together in a way that you just don't get in any other medium. And I think now going to Masquerade, it's one of these things where I think you've kind of captured lightning in a bottle, because it's the perfect space with the perfect show in the perfect presentation, the way that it all comes together. And okay, so let's dig into this now, because Masquerade, this is coming off of Phantom having closed on Broadway a couple years ago.
Right.
So how did you get involved with this initially? Because was it your idea to be Phantom's gone now, but we need to do it in a different way? Or did someone approach you? You're like, all right, I want your immersive take on all of this.
Yes. A little bit of all of the above. I think Phantom closing gave an opportunity to think what's next with Phantom.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew was very interested.
Mr. Lloyd Webber.
Mr. Lloyd Webber, yes, was interested in doing something else. And he first in the first place he approached Randy about maybe doing a pop-up like immersive experience.
Huh.
And it was Randy who said, like, there's no such thing as a pop-up of
Not
an immersive,
Phantom.
not Phantom. Like
No.
you want to do Phantom immersive, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so that led to discussions of what this could be. And I think you're exactly right. When you think about Phantom of the Opera and the kind of simple plot of that story and the love triangle and then the environment of the Paris Opera and the kind of haunted house of it and like the Phantom. I mean, all of it is like, okay, this is immersive theater written all over it. I mean, I think lots of things can be immersive theater, but Phantom just had the DNA. Like you look at that story and you're like, I want to be inside it. I want to be backstage. I want to be near the Phantom, right? And if you look at Hal Prince's brilliant production, it had immersive aspects.
Mm-hmm.
That chandelier over the audience, the surround sound of the voice traveling around the theater, the Phantom popping up in the proscenium, the soldier popping up in the pit. There was, I mean, Andrew I just think, was way ahead of his time, with everything he did, whether it was like making a musical of Jesus Christ or Evita Peron or, Cats. So I appreciated that because I think whenever I do a revival, I'm looking at like what's in the DNA of the original.
Yeah.
And just like taking that. It's not just like remaking it. It's
Yeah.
like, what could it be? But when I started working on this with Randy, we really were clear. This can't be just the immersive Phantom. We have to make a whole new show. That's why it's called Masquerade. It's a new thing. And the whole idea that the audience is invited to the Masquerade by the Phantom, that was the guiding principle of the whole thing, and then took like 2 years to figure out how to do it and how to make the math work and how to get the right proportions with the audience. And finding that building on 57th Street was a big key to that. Walking in that old Lee's Art Supply store and walking in the lobby, the first ground floor, and seeing vaulted ceilings. And it was like, okay, this is the catacombs.
There you go.
And then like, well, come downstairs and going into the creepy basement, 10,000 square feet of like old brick where you're literally underneath the sidewalk of 57th Street. Like
Are we really down
yes,
there? Wow.
Yes, you are down there at certain parts of that cellar. You are underneath the sidewalk. And I thought, well, this is like the Phantom's lair.
Yeah, because it felt like we were under the opera house.
Exactly.
That was so cool.
Exactly.
And I got to imagine, I mean, I want to get into the math of this too because of how you're moving through. But like putting it all together, I'm so glad that you said that when you revive something, you look at how to improve it, how to make it different. Because I feel like it's nothing. You get the reputation of being just kind of like a cash grab if it's just remounting the same thing without really changing something. And I'm like, if you're going to bring something back, why are you bringing it back?
Yeah,
What's going to be
exactly.
different? How are you going to tell this story differently, reach a different audience than you did before, or reconnect with the old one, the existing audience? And that's what I absolutely love about what you've done in Masquerade, because everyone, so many people know the story. The music is iconic. And I don't use that word like lightly.
Yes.
The music is iconic. Everyone knows the story, if not loosely, very intimately. And to put it together in this way where, like you said at the very beginning, where we're able to get inches from Broadway stars, Tony winners' faces, see their sweat, feel their breath on us.
Yes, yes.
I had Carlotta shoo me off of her dressing room because I was sitting where she needed to go. And then she gave me the note after she read it from the Phantom. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, right? And this stuff, it touched me. And I've been around, Broadway performers for a long time now. But to be on stage, I put in air quotes, because
Yeah.
the whole building is the stage. To be on stage with them and to see, like, I was there with Nick Walker as the Phantom, and just like that dude, just such a menacing, big Phantom.
I know.
Love him. And he was, belting, singing full Phantom, literally a
Yeah.
foot from my face, looking at me. I'm like, oh my God, this is the best experience. I'm getting goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that I think is, even if it's somebody's first experience in the theater, they're going to never forget it. Everything will be compared to this.
Well, that's amazing to hear all those, your experience of it. I do want to say, I think as much as it was thrilling for you, it's thrilling for the performers.
I was going to ask about that.
And that's really important,
Yeah.
that I think for the actors, people like Nick, who've performed on Broadway, to be in a space where it's like a whole new ball game. And we were really, really intentional about casting people in this original company, and now all the new performers that are joining us, brilliant new people that are kind of joining our family over there on 57th Street. Every time we bring someone in, it's like, are you interested in this form? This is not your traditional gig. You actually are signing up for making contact with the audience. And that might not be everybody's bag, but
it's uncomfortable for a lot.
But the people in the building, and not all of them had done it or knew how to do it, but now in it, you understand the kind of like the mission of acting, which is like connecting and the transformative qualities of actors as shamans. I mean, I really believe actors are shamans because they're using their body, their soul, their mind to transport themselves into another character. I mean, that is like a religious thing that's going on with an actor. It is.
Going back to the 60s.
Going back to the 60s with a little help with their religion there, a little substance abuse maybe there to expand our minds in the 60s. But this idea that actors are channeling something larger than themselves. They are. And it's magical. There's something magical. That it's not just, we're not making widgets. It's like, what is that alchemy that happens? And then when that happens, to share it spatially with for an actor, I think, and make the eye contact. I've just talked to the performers in our company, and every one of them says they're aware of the audience in a way they've never been aware of, and they're having interactions with audience where people look back at them, and will reach out and hold their hand.
Really?
Will tear up. There's a story, it's kind of been told many times, but I always come back to it with Erin, who's one of our amazing Christines, where she was crossing through one of the rooms with one audience member, and she noticed they were crying, and she stopped and kind of, as Christine said, "Oh my goodness, are you all right?" And the person said, "Well, like, it's the year anniversary of my father dying." And she had just sung "Wishing You Were Here." And they were walking through this outdoor courtyard where Christine had pointed out, "That's the statue of my father. Do you see him?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I'm thinking about my father tonight." And then Erin turned and like said, "Can I hug you?" Like, just as Erin, as Christine, is this, it's like a human moment of like a ministry happening there, hugged each other and took her hand and went on into the experience. Like, so it's intense, but I think for an actor where the calling is, of course, it's a living and it's a profession. But look, actors are actors. We're in the theater because we're into a higher purpose of a ministry, I believe, that kind of keeps our soul going. So I think the company Masquerade they're experiencing that in a way that you just don't get when you're 20 feet across a footlight in a orchestra pit on a Broadway stage.
And you have a wall of sound with the orchestra right there separating you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that is such an interesting thing that the cast, I guess, they're allowed to acknowledge, I guess, probably encouraged, right? To acknowledge everybody in the room with them.
Eye contact, and it's a lot of what we talked about is, what is your relationship with the audience?
Yeah.
And the audience is a character there. They've been invited to this masquerade by the Phantom to witness his story, to partake in it, to empathize with it, to gain understanding. And so, I mean, the Phantom in particular, and Nick is a genius at it.
Yeah.
They're all great in it, but Nick was like the early adopter, I would say, adapter, whatever that expression. I mean, he was always in rehearsal, like looking at the audience. Like, I didn't even have to tell him how to do it. He had such a natural instinct for it.
How did you rehearse this? Like,
it was crazy.
Yeah?
Can you imagine walking into a room with 6 people playing the same role? I mean, I literally, I've been around a bit. I remember walking to that rehearsal. I was like, do this. How am I going to make all these guys feel like they have the role and that they're equally creating it? Ditto with the Christines and the Giris and the Raouls. But what happened, and I've spoke about this, but I love that this happened. It created this egoless collective culture where those 6 original Phantoms were like on the bench watching like a basketball team, and they watched each other in every rehearsal. Okay. So you can't have ego. You can't say like, well, this is my role and I can't watch, you are watching it. And they would tag in and out. I'd be like, that was great, Hugh. Okay, come on, Kyle, you take over. Okay, now Clay, you go. Telly, you go.
I was going to say, yeah, you have
tap
to
in
like,
and out. And then they would, when we would do run-throughs, 6 days to do the run-throughs because it was 1 run-through per day. We couldn't do more than 1 a day.
Sure.
So it literally took 6 days to rotate through the entire cast.
Wow.
So Nick would go on a Tuesday. He would spend the next 5 days watching the run-throughs of the other 5 cast members that play his role. And what was beautiful is at the end of every run-through, they would all go to each other, like all those 6 Phantoms, and they would like high five and hug each other, and then they'd start trading stories. I saw you do that. How did you do that? Oh, that was great. That was great. How about this? Oh, how did you do that? Why did you do that? And they started trading stories and
That's
tips.
so cool.
And, you had Hugh Panera, who had done it for 12 years on Broadway. You had, people who had never done Phantom ever, never sang it once before this process.
Yeah.
So there was like a sharing, and it was beautiful amongst the Christines as well. All of the characters, the jury coven, we call them. So it created a culture of like, we are doing something that is not just about like my role and my life. It was like, we are all participating in like maybe some form of theater history here. And we all are going to without ego contribute to this thing, building the spaceship, which we, and take it to space. That's how it felt.
Take it underground.
Take it underground.
Underground to space.
Underground to space. But it did feel like a NASA mission. It was like, how is this ever going to work? And I would say to everybody, like, we don't have all the answers. Like, we're going to figure this out together. But, actors love to be creative.
Yeah.
Actors love to like engage in the bigger picture. And I think a project like this allowed every actor to participate, and be a creative agent inside the show.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode. You said a couple years ago, it was like 2 years ago, right? That Weber, that Andrew came to your
Randy,
husband, to Randy. And then how quickly did you find the building? Because I feel like that was probably one of the biggest building blocks to unlock.
Yes.
And then the music is unchanged, right? So you had to figure out how mathematically to move these segments of people through.
I mean, we worked a lot on the score actually because to make it all work inside the mathematical rubric of the building and the 6 pulses. So we worked pretty laboriously on every piece of music, and we did several just table reads at a piano because there are cuts in songs, there are edits, there's music taking the audience from one room to the next.
Right.
There's new music. There's a new song that Andrew wrote in our carnival scene.
Right.
We took Learn to Be Lonely, which was written for the film, and we put that inside Masquerade and gave it to Madame Giry. So there's quite a bit of new stuff going. Even the music, if you've seen the show or if you're going to go to see the show, just notice what you're listening to when you first walk in the building and you're checking your coat. It's this crazy piece of music that Andrew composed. Even that was like, what should the audience hear when they arrive? I mean, that was like a whole multiple sessions on what should be the music when you first walk in the building. So and then we re-recorded a lot of the music with an orchestra in Prague. So it's been re-recorded, re-orchestrated because there are certain scenes like the organ room scene, when Christine takes the mask off of the Phantom and where he's playing the organ. If you listen to the Broadway recording, it's full on like filmic orchestration. And it's been reorchestrated to feel very intimate and very sparse with more just like a string quartet.
I feel like one of the technical challenges probably was soundproofing each of the tracks to keep the audience from hearing other person, another audience track.
No, brilliant. Lee McCutcheon and Brett Jarvis, our music team in the construction, soundproofing design, soundproofing tests, and then really smart programming. So there are things like the ba-da-da-da-da, which is in the overture, is kind of happening at the same time that the audience is like going down to the lake when the music repeats in the title song. So certain loud music happens at the exact same time and across different pulses, so they cancel each other out.
Ooh.
But like to figure that out, massive. And all the things we did to mitigate soundproof, because in the early previews we were like obsessive. I would like
Right.
stand in a room, I'm like, I can hear it. What are we gonna do? And then tweaking things, 15 seconds, 10 seconds,
Yeah.
adding church bells so it kind of like confuses your brain so you don't focus on the music you hear from a different space, like all the little tricks that were layered into the sound design.
We said you had 6 days of run-throughs, but how long was your tech? Because normally, like, moving into a theater, your tech is maybe a week or so.
Yeah. The tech was, I think, about 2 weeks.
That's
But
still not much for that.
It's not, but we were teching in simultaneous locations, because once you get into running the show in simultaneity, there are things happening across 6 floors.
Yes.
So literally, we would do one room, tech one room, and then move on. But then the other cast would be practicing the other scenes layered into it, and we would divide. I had 2 associate directors, choreographer, associate choreographer, music director, music assistant, and we were spread out across 6 floors watching different parts of the building go. So that was exhausting. And then we previewed for like
Right.
8 weeks, because we had such a learning curve, of like, oh dear, that audience turned to the right when they were supposed to go to the left. Like, what are we going to do to fix that? Like every preview, we were learning about audience behavior, timing
Interesting.
patterns,
Yeah.
and refining with the cast. Like, how do you get the audience to, know where to move and how to move? And then our incredible butlers that kind of are the docents of this experience, refining how they operate with the audience.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, the butlers are a character in and of themselves,
Yeah,
because they're
yeah.
the ones directing everybody in, and everyone has to be in certain places at certain times, or the whole thing just kind of cascades and falls apart.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always been obsessed with front of house. Like when I did Hair, on Broadway, and like I had a friend call me up and they were like, Diane, your show was so marvelous. And then at the end, all the ushers are like asking us, screaming at us to leave, exit to the left. And like, we all want to go on stage. And I was like, oh my God. And I remember going to, Drew Jamson and saying, can we just ask? I know they're desperate to catch their train and like it's time, but can you just ask the ushers just for like 5 minutes to wait before they start kicking the audience out of the theater? Like we work so hard as artists to transform the audience, like for the 2 hours traffic
To
of the
get them
stage.
there.
The actual purpose of the theater is what happens afterwards, right? What happens afterwards? How are we changed? How is the internal furniture in us rearranged? How do we see differently? So I've always thought like ushers before or after, like what happens before or after is as important as what happens during your show.
Mm-hmm.
So I love being able to talk to the butlers and work with them on, how they operate as these brilliant ushers in our experience.
Because they're in character too.
Yeah, they're totally
Yeah,
in the world.
Yeah, they're not just like, hey, I'm Tom, go stand over there because the Phantom's coming.
Like once you cross into the building, we are quote unquote in world.
Yes. Oh, that makes a whole atmosphere that you just don't get anywhere else. Because this is something else that I really love about this. Because normally when you walk into a theater, transforming the lobby, transforming the house off the stage is typically pretty cost prohibitive. So people just don't do it. By getting your own building and building it out, custom built to exactly how you want everything to look and feel. And, I think it was just interesting, the reuse of the escalators and everything and whatnot. Like, it's just so well done. And I want to just give all the kudos and all the hats off metaphorically to all of the creative team, because I know this was probably one of the hardest technical preparations that you and the team has probably ever done.
Yes, no question. I mean, I've said it multiple times, but this is no question the hardest thing I've ever done. It just challenged like the brain, the endurance factor of it, the out of the box nature of it. I mean, I love the theater because it is like making the impossible possible. Yeah. Like that's why I always say I love to do the theater, because every production, it's a new beginning, and it's like, here we go. We're going to get a group of people and we're going to make the impossible possible. But this one really felt like the impossible. And so the beauty of what can happen when you get a group together, it's so affirming, I think, in the world we're living in, where things feel so impossible and a new way of thinking feels so impossible and change feels so impossible. And we can be so crushed spiritually, to think that we can make space for like a different way of living and existing together on this planet. So I just, I love that aspect. It's like why I love the circus too, because it's like literally the impossible. People like flipping on their heads and landing on one hand, and the other acrobats have to like hold the nets to make sure no one gets hurt. Like it's like how do you all like what is all the roles we play to make something that someone says you can't do that.
Oof, that's so cool.
And I say in Masquerade, it's everybody. It's the brilliant stage managers. It's our brilliant crew. It's everybody who said, I'm signing on for this because I want to try something that's never been done before. And I think when we look at the model of theater, it's got challenges right now. It's got a lot of challenges, and I think the more that a show like Masquerade can exist and just say, to the next generation of theater makers out there, an audience, like theater can be all these things. It doesn't just have to exist in one lane that we're used to seeing it in. So let's open up, what we think the theater can be and do. And I hope if nothing else, Masquerade is going to contribute to a lot of creativity and a lot of creative thought for the next generation of theater makers out there.
That's interesting. On the producing side, I've co-produced and now I'm lead producing my own thing now, and it's one of those things where I look at something like Jellicle Ball, like Masquerade, that really are pushing the limits of what we know Broadway to be.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be in a certain square radius. It doesn't need to be on a stage where it's just side to side, right? Like you want to come in and tell the best story in a new way at the top of your game. And was it a hard sell from the business economics of this? I'm gonna get insider business baseball for a second, but was this a hard sell to like raise the capital for this because they're like, oh, that's never gonna work?
Yeah, no, I think because Phantom is such an iconic property and immersive theater is of such interest right now. Experiences like the experience market, whether you're talking about restaurants, retail is all interested in experience. That's why that building was empty, right? Brookfield Properties has buildings that are empty because it's about experience now. Like how are you going to build experiences? So I think the money raise wasn't the issue. It was really how do we craft this in a way that the business plan is going to, be a solid one, because when you're immersive theater, we're not doing 1,200 people a night. Right, we're doing kind of a premium business, and I think Masquerade has been this enormous, incredible learning curve of how to do this. And every time we go out to do this again, we have people scouting locations in China right now for us. There are going to be opportunities to improve on the learning curve.
Yeah,
and other immersive shows that are kind of knocking on my door where I'm thinking, wow, I've learned so much about how to do this. Not only from the technical and the creative side, but also, how do you make this business work? But I do think audiences are craving what live theater can be and do, what only live theater can be and do. And so if we can find a way to center that, there's a business there that will continue to thrive.
I love that you are trying to find a place in China. It's really interesting. I guess Phantom is Phantom big in China?
Huge.
Okay.
All over Asia.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And I think London too, like West End would be a great place. I feel like somewhere, I don't know, has there been talk of finding a Seattle, a Toronto, a Chicago, a Cleveland, where there's lots of theater-loving people and just being like, all right, it's cheaper to build a building. Let's just build our own building or gut it and do it custom from the ground up. Right.
Well, I think, we love the Lee's Art Supply Store, but we had to retrofit it.
Yeah.
We were dealing with a building that had a lot of great features, including, the roof and the basement and all that stuff we've discussed. But I think now that we know how the show works, we would build from the ground up because we know exactly how it would work. And
interesting. So you would have got this building you're in now, knowing
now
what you
that
know
we've
now?
made it, I think if we were to go again, we know what we know the dream building, we know the dream space, we know the dream real estate, right? To also do things like increase capacity. So again, I think it's like this is the flagship prototype production that we're going to learn from to build it out.
That is so cool. I'm so happy for you, and I'm proud of what this is doing, especially for Broadway, for the city, because a Phantom is one of those shows that brings in people, and while they're here, they see other things.
Yeah.
So coming to Masquerade, having that as a destination, it helps the entire industry.
Yes.
And it's helping to bring tourism back, which is still, its own challenge.
Its own challenge. No, I know. And I love, I'm a born and bred New Yorker, so I love walking on 57th Street, and I see the lines outside our building. Of course, we have a dress code, black, white, silver, like formal cocktail attire. And I go in the Brooklyn Diner to grab something to eat, and I'm like, or I go down a block or 2 blocks away, and I always see people who are going to Masquerade. I always say, "Are you going to Masquerade?" Because they're dressed up and they have their masks.
Do you tell them who you are?
No. I'm just I'm like, oh, it's great. You're going to enjoy it. I know, but I love that. Cities need that. They need nightlife. They need events. So I feel like it's in our own little way. It's a gift to New York that there's this thing that's happening that people are getting dressed up for and going out.
It's become an event.
Yeah,
people used to dress up to Broadway like that was the thing. And I mean, no shade against wearing sandals and shorts to a Broadway show now, but it used to be something.
I know. And for all the people out there, you can wear your black T-shirt, just like put on a nice little jacket and your sneakers and your black blue jeans, and you'll get in. It's not like you have to be decked out, but for people who want to deck out,
it's fun.
Wow, it's fun.
It's fun. Do you have cosplay people coming in like full costumes or anything?
Oh, you have no idea.
Really?
Gowns with trains, which is really tricky on the stairs.
I was going to say.
You're walking a lot. I see these people lifting up their trains. People make their own like headpieces and masks. There was a mask the other day that went up in the air, and there was a chandelier hanging inside the mask on someone's head,
That's brilliant.
I just love that. I wanted to say something earlier when you're talking. I love when theater becomes like not just theater, when it becomes part of society or part of pop culture. Like I've always, that's why I like the Donkey Show, because I'm like, disco is so much bigger than any theater has ever been.
Yeah.
So I love dealing with things that have that like potency, that kind of energy that is a larger phenomenon in our lives. So I love that Masquerade is, it's about dressing up. It's not just like the play or the show. It's about how we live, how we, participate.
It's feeling like you're really in an opera, like and watching this and part of the story. And
exactly.
I mean, that's why the dress code's there. That's why like we're with the actors and they are making eye contact with us and touching us and acknowledging that we are there with them.
Exactly.
It's not just a performative thing. I think it's so brilliant. Anyway, well, congratulations on all of that. I think it's so amazing. And as we wind down now, we're going to play plot in 60 seconds. So I have a list of 17 popular musicals in front of me.
Oh, dear.
Phantom is on the list.
Okay. I hope I pass this test.
If you don't know, you can make it up, but you're going to give me a number 1 through 17. I'll tell you what you chose, and then you give me the plot to what you chose in 60 seconds or less.
Okay. I don't think I understand, but I'm going to go for it. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So give me a number 1 through 17.
16.
So 16, I'm going to tell you what you chose, and then you give me the plot to that musical in 60 seconds.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Okay,
I can
ready?
make it up.
16.
Yes.
You chose Avenue Q. Go.
60
Avenue
seconds
Q.
remaining.
Puppets, in a little town. I'm looking at the set in my brain, and they are there's definitely some crisis going on, and they're having to figure something out. Oh my God, Kevin McCollum's going to die that I don't know this plot to Avenue Q. Okay. And maybe there's like is there like a wedding or something? I did see this. There's a wedding, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
No, maybe so.
There's
There's a relationship.
Puppet relationships.
Puppet relationships.
30 seconds
And,
remaining.
irreverent dialogue and, lots of humor. And in the end, love wins out.
15
And
seconds
puppet sex.
remaining.
Yes.
Puppet sex.
Puppet sex. All right. That's good. That's good. We haven't had Avenue Q in a while. Let's go. All right.
That's embarrassing. Okay.
It's all right. There have been other things like Sound of Music, Curtains and Nazis. That's it.
Okay. I could have done Sound of Music.
All right. So then 3 standard closing questions. First one, simply just what motivates you?
What motivates me? What motivates me? The opportunity to be with other people and surprise myself and surprise each other and take a group of humans to a place we thought we'd never go.
What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
I would say engage in life. Don't worry about the theater. Read books, go to the museum, to develop your own personal interests, things that matter to you, and learn about them, and then find ways to pour all of that into your pursuit in the theater, and treat every theater project as an opportunity to educate yourself and to deepen who you are as a person.
Chef's kiss. All right, last question, hardest one. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh my God, that's really tough. You know, as you were saying that to me, I was like seeing Porgy and Bess. So I'm just going to go with like what was, you know, like subconsciously coming to me.
All right.
So I'm going to say Porgy and Bess.
Love it. All right, where can we connect with you online? Do you play the social media game anywhere?
You know, I have a little secret identity on Instagram so I can see things.
You got a lurker account?
But I don't officially do that kind of social media. But, you know, I'm affiliated with ART, so you can always get me through ART Instagram, ART website, and Masquerade.
Of course. And you can get me on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Facebook. Yeah, all right. We are saying thanks to the lovely WelcomeToTimesSquare.com studio. Thanks to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music. And thanks to Diane Paulus for spilling all the secrets. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. What a great conversation.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.